We set out to Santiago de Compostela together, my daughter and me. I've heard about the Camino for quite some time. I've read about it, listened to other people's experiences, seen a few films. But hearing about the Camino is one thing, and going on the Camino is something entirely different. You have to somehow grow into it spiritually. The Camino is a combination of various circumstances and opportunities that must come together, almost miraculously, for such a journey to happen. Some risks, as it later turned out, are virtually impossible to foresee, and their occurrence on the route can ruin the entire carefully prepared undertaking. There is a Chinese saying, even a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Our first step on the Camino was planning the route, deciding what to take, how much to pack, estimating the weight, booking accommodation, ferry crossings, buses, planes. Altogether, it took more than a month. It is commonly known that the goal of the pilgrimage is the tomb of St. James the Apostle in the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. But I believe the true goal is the road itself. It doesn't matter where you start or how many kilometers you plan to walk. We take our backpacks, our intentions, our worries, the great unknown of the future, and we set off. This is really happening. What am I searching for on the Camino? I think space, time, silence, and inner peace. What do I find on the Camino? A fairy tale and suffering in one. This kind of travel cannot be compared to anything else I have known so far. Maybe it's closest to my mountain expeditions. Unusual landscapes, surprising adventures on the way, unique traveling. I walk without haste all day. I can choose a path I take. I stop when and where I want. Endless landscapes, constantly changing at the pace of a slow march, giving me time to contemplate the views.
Nieźle, 144. To przeszłyśmy już 23 km.
I set out with my own intention. The road was meant to be a kind of prayer in silence and an adventure at the same time. It seems to me that the intention you have on the Camino is a deeply personal matter. It's a form of reflection that changes, becomes more concrete, or even emerges during or after the journey. Perhaps this is one of the features that distinguishes the Camino from other forms of travel. Walking day by day, further and further, we are somehow placed outside the civilization, unconnected to it. This state allows us to view the entire surroundings from the perspective of a pilgrim, observer, traveler, explorer, all in one. We walk along the coast, through forests, wastelands, meet people, go through picturesque villages next to people's gardens, farms. We pass old stone houses, which seem to tell the stories of their inhabitants' past struggles. Inside these homes, there are family photos of those who once lived here, very modestly. It is from here that Galicians emigrated to Latin America in search of bread. Most of them never returned to their homeland. We make our way through medieval towns and large cities, only to leave again through small paths amid fields and meadows. We pass Bayona. It was in Bayona that Europeans first heard about Christopher Columbus's discovery of the New World. Each time, what we see, feel, and everything that surrounds us is different. The sensations are like those from a fairy tale. Everything changes slowly, at the pace of our march, like in some strange film. There are no limits. For a brief moment, one feels a taste of true freedom. It should be pointed out that contrary to what many people say, the trail marking was not always clear or was entirely absent in some places, and one has to be careful to know the way. 40 degrees centigrade heat in the shade, 60 degrees centigrade in the sun, heat from above and heat from below radiating from the scorching ground. In most places marked on the map as water sources, the water has already disappeared. The more water we carry with us, the heavier the backpack becomes. Over and over we have to climb and descend. The road often leads through exposed places, and even in the shade the heat is unbearable. The cities are hot and concrete, some filled with intolerable noise. Food and water must be organized every day, despite the exhaustion. When we finally reach a hostel, there is uncertainty whether it will be open. As it turned out, in some cases, the anxiety was justified. The fatigue increases each day. It becomes harder and harder to gather the strength to keep going. Ultreia et Sosea, Santiago. Go further and higher, rise up, don't give up. St. James. This was the medieval greeting with which pilgrims encouraged each other, giving one another strength in the hardships of the journey. The last part of the greeting was a call to the patron saint of pilgrims, St. James, that is Sant Iago, a combination of two words derived from the Latin Sanctus Jacobus. In those times, the greeting was spoken in an ancient version of Galician Portuguese, the language used in the western part of the Iberian Peninsula, and it probably sounded like Ultreia et Sosea, Santiago. There are various reasons why people go on the pilgrimage to Santiago. Medieval pilgrims were driven by faith, hope, penance, gratitude, the desire for spiritual growth, or even a judicial order. In modern times, pilgrims walk the Camino for prayer, contemplation, seeking spiritual meaning, people recovering from a crisis, or tourists with a pilgrim's soul, for whom a simple journey or slow travel often turns into an inner journey. For many, the Camino becomes the opposite of the chaos of civilization and technology. Both medieval and modern pilgrims are united by the road as a metaphor for life, the need for change, the meeting with oneself, and the scallop shell of St. James, a symbol that has survived from the Middle Ages. It was a sign that the person had either returned from the pilgrimage or was in the middle of it. What was I afraid of? I think the main concern was the uncertainty of whether I would be able to complete the entire journey. The other was navigation. It's not as simple as just turning on the GPS. I owe the success of the entire trip to my daughter, her long hours spent over the maps, and her extraordinary navigation skills, and her unusual skill of good orientation. Sometimes technology fails too, and that's when you need mental calm, good orientation, and a map. Silence on the Camino is very different. Walking for several days along the golden azure coast of the Atlantic, when the wind constantly blows from the sea, carrying the scent of salt. In sheltered spots, silence suddenly appears with the fragrance of pine resin. There is the silence of the whispering wind among the leaves in the light brown eucalyptus forests. There is the silence with the scent of wild mint growing among fields shimmering with all shades of ochre and green. There is also the unbearable silence in the wilderness, where the heat pours from the sky. The still air is as hot as an oven, surrounded by fields of golden, dry grass, and the sunlight is blinding. Everything alive has hidden somewhere, and we somehow must walk this road. There is silence under the canopy of grapevines, grape trees, and lemon trees. Very early in the morning, when all of Spain is still asleep, there is no one around, and mist swirls over the fields, dew gleams on the grass and leaves, and silence is only filled by the song of birds trying to survive a few, maybe 3 or 4 hours they have before the heat comes. What did I feel when we arrived at the cathedral square in Santiago? Finally, it's over. Is it really over? So soon? So this is it. What a shame. It's so hot. Maybe we'll sit in the shade under the arcades. When the emotion settled, there came a sense of deep feeling and the realization that we had made it here on foot, day after day, overcoming all the difficulties, to Santiago de Compostela, to the tomb of St. James the Apostle, sometimes walking for hours on end each day. Then came the Mass in the Cathedral of St. James. It was a solemn moment, yet at the same time sad, because it marked the end of the pilgrimage. The world-famous censer, Botafumeiro, in the Cathedral of St. James is used only 12 times a year during special holiday ceremonies, several of which are celebrated only in Spain. Neither the cathedral in Santiago, crowded with tourists, nor the busy, noisy streets of the city, where it's hard to walk without bumping into a passerby, are conducive to deep reflection. It's more like a quick return from a fairy tale to reality. We'll look around a little longer and then we'll leave. Pain, fatigue, discouragement, your own thoughts, or the lack of them, struggling with the road in the heat, with the ever too heavy backpack, or simply walking a long distance. I think all of these feelings are experienced and faced in solitude. For me, the determination to fulfill the intentions with which I set out and the extraordinariness of this journey is the energy that helps me overcome the difficulties on the Camino. Someone once said that what's in my backpack is the sum of my fears. In a way, yes and no. Some basic things must be packed, and as usual, the contents of the backpack is the result of common sense, the season, and certain compromises. There are moments along the journey when thoughts come on their own, almost out of nowhere. And there are moments when it's impossible to think about anything else than finding some shade, getting through this hellish stretch, drinking water, and then collapsing onto the bed. There are also moments when the mind shuts down and only awareness remains, silence, and the almost automatic march. On the Camino, you can encounter all sorts of things, people, events, but most often you encounter your own weakness, which you try to overcome. You meet yourself, your thoughts, and face challenges that you must overcome within yourself. This daily rhythm of walking makes you sometimes realize how many unnecessary things and worries surround us every day. Camino is a unique event, a combination of discovering the unknown and meditation during the journey, a road that allows you to step away from everyday life for a moment, to temporarily shift your perspective on almost everything around you. Actually, the same road means something different for each person. Perhaps this is what makes people return to the Camino time and time again. Shall I return to the Camino again? I do not know yet. How could I summarize this journey? An adventure. It seemed to me that everything happening around me was as unreal as some kind of a fairy tale. A journey of a lifetime, something entirely unique, a metaphysical experience I had never lived before and incomparable to anything else.